like to toot my own horn, and I know that I'm setting myself up for probably disappointment later tonight, but I hope you were with us last week on the Final Five, because we almost swept the board. We had 2 out of 3 on the power play points with Reinhart and Matthews. We hit the goal scorer line A. We hit the side with Washington. We hit the total with the over in Toronto and Buffalo. So we had a really good Final Five last week, and I'm hoping that we can now ride that wave.
Only on SportsGrid.
50 points in a fourth quarter for the Atlanta Hawks. Like, what is going on? It's like circus numbers. What are we doing?
And we sound like two old heads complaining. It's a tough watch. It's a tough watch sometimes. I don't mind the shooting. I just know the numbers. Like, when you strictly look at it from the numbers in betting, it's getting really hard to bet.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Louis Riddick has interviewed for every job in North America. And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about every business in North America of any kind whatsoever. Tire companies, grocery store CEOs, shopping malls, insurance companies. What job hasn't Louis Riddick interviewed for?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
The NBA will take center stage once football stops, and people will watch the NBA playoffs and all that. But the standings are whacked out in the Western Conference. Like, Oklahoma City, Memphis, and the Houston Rockets are the best teams in the conference.
You want to talk about a team with overs and no defense? The Wizards are your team. It's unbelievable. They can't make a total high enough. It's nuts.
Sports Rage tonight. Weeknights 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Monday to everyone. The NFL playoff field is set. We'll get into the latest matchups. A big weekend, of course, coming up. Not to mention the college football playoffs. Thursday night and Friday night semifinals, maybe the biggest week in the entire season for both college and pro football. Also a big day today in terms of coaching. Some coaches losing their jobs today. We're going to have news on that as well. Vinnie Iyer will join us courtesy of Sporting News. And also our SportsGrid insider, Adam Caplan, will take us behind the scenes into some of the reasons why some of these teams are making the decisions they are in the last 24 hours. So let's catch you up at the very latest before we get into some of the results. One of the announcements that was made today in particular, not a big surprise, the Jaguars have dismissed Doug Peterson as their head coach. So Peterson, of course, with the Jaguars for several years, 15 games under 500 as the head coach there, ends up being let go. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, starting a new search. Trent Baalke, the GM, looks like he will be back to conduct that search as well. Maybe a little bit of a surprise. Late yesterday, we found out that we have a one-and-done coach in the National Football League, Gerard Mayo, coaching the Patriots after the departure of Bill Belichick. He was fired as well. New England with one of the worst records in the NFL this season. One-and-done coaches fired over the last few years. Not only just Gerard Mayo, but also Frank Reich was fired in 2023, Lovie Smith, 2022, Nathaniel Hackett, David Culley, Urban Meyer. Generally, this does happen every so often. And the statement from Robert Kraft was also released where he says, "We have tremendous fans who expect and deserve a better product than what we have delivered in recent years. I apologize for that. I've given a lot of thought and consideration to what actions to take, expediting the process, returning to a championship, and determine this is the best move right now." One potential suitor for the Patriots head coaching position could be their former player Mike Vrabel, who is a free agent coach at the moment. Last night in the National Football League, the best game of the week, without a doubt, could have been the game between the Vikings and Lions. Turned out to pretty much look like the Lions deserve to be the number one seed and the winner of the NFC North. They're going to be the number one seed. They get the bye, and the Lions had their best season ever after they culminated their win against the Vikings yesterday. Minnesota's offense really struggled throughout this game, so Dan Campbell, naturally after the 31-9 win, recognized that not only did the offense show up once again, but this time it was the defense that set the tone.
How's it going? Woo! Man, what a win. What a win. Guys, I can't say enough about our defense. Let me start there, man. AG and this defense, they really, control that game for us, particularly the first half, 2.5 quarters. The guys on defense, I thought executed exactly the way that we had worked and what we had talked about. We were able to apply a lot of pressure, and it just paid dividends. That's a good team over there. They're well coached. Kevin O'Connell does a great job. Ton of weapons, and we were able to contain them and keep them at bay until our offense was able to, to find our rhythm. So just total team effort. Started with our defense, and took the whole unit. But man, what a great job! Back-to-back division winners in the NFC North. Got the 1 seed, 15 wins. I just couldn't be more proud of those guys. And I just told them that to me, this has been in the making for a while. It takes a special group of guys, and I think you kind of had to go through what we've been through over the last 4 years, the core of this unit, and then anybody that comes in, they fall in line because that's what we're built around is our core, and they really delivered for us today. Our playmakers made plays when we needed it.
We'll see the Lions in 2 weeks, and Kevin O'Connell, the coach of the Vikings, said they'll also see the Lions in 2 weeks. We will see. Giants making the announcement this morning. Brian Daboll, head coach, coming back for another season, and also Joe Schoen coming back as well. The Giants lost to the Eagles. They're going to have a top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, so the Giants finish off their very difficult season with a loss. The Buccaneers needed every point that they could muster against the New Orleans Saints. Saints led this one for a long period of time as the Bucs were 14.5-point favorites, and now the Bucs do advance. They win the division. They'll take on the Washington Commanders next week. They've been running the ball extremely well. Bucky Irving has been a star for them, along with Baker Mayfield, and Baker knows how valuable Irving has been to their backfield.
Mike, for sure was happy that Bucky Irving got that touchdown because he wants to win more than anything else. He puts the team above his own personal accolades. Yeah. How much more does that make you want to go out there and get him that, that 8-yard pass that you did at the end there? Because he's always put the team first.
He always has, and that's why you love him. That's why we appreciate having him. We're lucky to have him, and he's underappreciated throughout the media, the league, and he's one of one, and he deserves that. So obviously, you saw the stadium erupt, the whole sideline erupt. You can tell how much people care about him and what that means for everybody around him.
What were your thoughts when Bucky scored in that play rather than dropping down at the 5 or 6 yard line?
We won the game, great, but now I'm going to be the guy that didn't get the 1,000 yards. So now he's going to have to play 11 more years after that if we weren't going to get him that. So no, but it was obviously most important thing is winning. All jokes aside, most important thing is winning. But you have a little second on the sideline there to realize that you're that close to it. And God is great. Got us the ball back. Defense got to stop, and so we were able to get one more play to him.
And the Bucs will be 3-point favorites this coming week against Washington. Meanwhile, wildest game of the day between Atlanta and Carolina. For a moment, it looked like the Falcons could end up getting that division title, but they did fall in overtime to a very good Carolina Panthers offense. 44 points. Panthers played much better down the stretch, including Bryce Young. Falcons were 7.5-point favorites, and they crawled to the finish line, although Michael Penix played very well. A lot of discussion what could go on in Atlanta. We'll keep an eye on that as well today. The Denver Broncos rolled out their starters. The Chiefs did not, and Denver ends up winning this one 38-0. The Broncos make the playoffs. The Chiefs didn't play anyone in the game. Washington Commanders, 6.5-point favorites at the end. Earlier in the week, the line was 3, 4.5, depending on where you got it. Maybe you got a push or even a win. They go to Dallas and cap off their season. So, again, they'll play Tampa this week. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers are going to take on the Eagles next week. We'll see if Christian Watson is going to play in this game. He was carted off with a non-contact injury, 24-22. The Bears beat the Packers' final game of the season. Also, Justin Herbert came from behind to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Score is closer than it indicated, 34-20 the final. But the Chargers have been challenged in almost every game this season. Justin Herbert, their quarterback, said that challenge could lead to good things in the playoffs.
And just kind of everything you guys have, all the games you've won this year, the ups and downs you guys have been through, how do you think this all kind of has prepared you guys to play postseason football this year?
Yeah, I think adversity is a great teacher, and we've seen our fair share of it. And having gone through, the tight games, the close ones, the tough losses, we're better because of it. We've watched the film and we've done everything we can to correct those mistakes. We're honest with ourselves when we watch the film the following day and we say, this is what we got to do better, and this is what we've done well. And at the same time, as long as we're able to be honest with ourselves and to continue to progress, move on, and develop, we're going in the right direction.
All right, so the Chargers pick up the win, and the Miami Dolphins fall in their final game of the season to Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Boy, if Rodgers just played against the Dolphins all season, he would have been the MVP, right? 4 more touchdown passes against Miami. 32-20, the final. Dolphins announced their head coach and GM will return next season. Also, the Colts will bring back their head coach and GM, as was announced by Irsay yesterday. Final 26-23. Colts ended up winning that game. The Tennessee Titans take out the Houston Texans, take out the Tennessee Titans. Got it right. 23-14. Tennessee has the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Okay. Lamar Jackson on Saturday crushed the Browns 35-10. We'll see if he or Josh Allen wins the MVP. And the Steelers now have lost 4 straight games as they head into the playoffs. The Bengals win 19-17. Okay, let's go over to the D3 championship in college football. We don't want to ignore them. North Central beats Mountain Union 41-25, the final. Also, former Boise State quarterback Malachi Nelson is going to play for UTEP next season. Jaden Rashada, the quarterback who has transferred from Florida to Georgia, will transfer again as he enters the portal. And Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch transfer to Georgia from USC. Also, Jonathan Kuminga of the Golden State Warriors involved in some trade discussion recently, potentially for Jimmy Butler. Forget all that. He sprained his ankle. He's going to be out 3 weeks. No word on Butler's return to Miami, by the way. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you gotta love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's go over some of the NFL matchups coming in Super Wildcard Weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Vinnie Iyer is with us from Sporting News. He'll be very busy this weekend. He's got Thursday college to cover, Friday college to cover, Saturday NFL, Sunday, Monday. I mean, Vinny, this is what we've been waiting for all year, right? Like the setup here, 5 straight days of playoff football. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We typically don't have that in college, so we'll take it. Some big college prospects that are going to the draft as well to watch in action for all the teams that are not in the playoffs in the NFL, but should be a great weekend and some rematches in store as we always have in the wild card round.
Yeah, real quick, let's just go through last night's game. Did you see anything that would take the idea away that the Lions should be favored to win the NFC? I mean, that was a pretty resounding win, I thought, over the Vikings. The Lions, to me, are going to be a really tough out. Now, anything can happen in one game. I don't want to say that it can't, because we've seen this play out before, and they clearly could lose in the Super Bowl very easily. But I got to feel like Detroit is going to make a little bit of a run here, right?
Yeah, everything looks like it's going to line right up for a Lions-Eagles NFC Championship game, which should be fantastic. I mean, these two teams match up really well against each other. And you got the Lions, I mean, all the defensive adversity, it seems like every game someone comes back and someone else gets hurt, but still they're fighting, they're making plays out there, they're active, really held this Vikings offense down, especially in the red zone, made some big plays. So you got to credit Aaron Glenn. I know Ben Johnson gets a lot of credit, but Aaron Glenn is working with a shortened deck here, and he's really kind of got this team to overachieve on that side of the ball. I think that's going to be the key. The Lions, we know, can score on anyone, but
Right.
are they going to have a repeat of the Bills game where they got blown out and somebody can score more than they can? And the Eagles certainly can do that. So I think they need the Lions defense to contain things, because we know they can put up points with anybody and outscore anybody who's left in the tournament field at this point.
I feel like as long as it's Josh Allen's not on the other side, I think you just said it right there. I think you got your answer there. I think Detroit will be okay. All right, so the annual rite of passage, as we look at the schedule here upcoming, is the Texans playing on Saturday afternoon another year, and they are again. I mean, this is it every year. 4:30 Eastern against the Chargers. Steelers Ravens at night. My gosh, that's a heavyweight one. Broncos Bills Sunday 1 o'clock. Packers Eagles Sunday 4:30. Commanders Buccaneers. That's a good one. 8 o'clock Eastern. Yes. I think I like Washington there. Monday Vikings Lions. We know now the end. It's Lions. I'm sorry, it's Vikings. So it's Vikings Rams at 8 o'clock Eastern. So in particular, which of these games, Vinny, stick out for you? And then we'll try and get to as many as we can.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the Commanders-Bucks game just because I think the winner of that game could make some noise in the next round, because they have a great offense, and that's what you need. And the Bucks, what do they have? A win over the Lions this year in Detroit. So they have a little bit of history that they can feel confident about if they can get past this round. And they have experience now. I mean, this team has consistently been in the playoffs now with Baker Mayfield a couple times. So they can maybe make a run, but the Commanders are also a dangerous team on the other side. I mean, they kind of revved it up, even the Marcus Mariota in there and the Packers trying to win the game. The Commanders said, oh, no, we're going to take control of the seed and go in with some momentum into the playoffs. So, look, the Commanders, I don't care about Jane Daniels' inexperience. He is a leader beyond his age at this point, and I think they're very dangerous. And you look at the other side, I would get a little bit nervous if I'm the Texans and see Jim Harbaugh on the other side. Justin Herbert has started to play really well. We know they can play defense. We know they can run the ball. I mean, Jim Harbaugh can flat out coach, and we've seen that. The Chargers aren't charging. They're going out and destroying teams they should and keeping it close in some tougher games. So I think I'd be a little bit worried most of the higher seeds by the Chargers and Commanders in this early field.
Okay, and both good kickers side by side, and Fairbairn and Dicker in a close game. So, it's interesting that you say that, because it could come down to that. Vikings open up as 2.5-point favorites against the Rams. That'll be the Monday night game. Total of 47.5. I'm looking at this line here, Vinny. I don't know. I think maybe the Vikings end up, it's a tough number, maybe 3 by the time that this goes off. But, 3 is such a key number in the NFL. I just simply put, Vinny, have not really been a Rams believer all season long. So I don't know. Like, I know that in any game they can turn it up and score, but that just didn't happen very often this season. It was like once every 3 or 4 games, the Rams put up like a 30 or 40 point spot. We're like, oh, nobody wants to play the Rams. But does that really hold weight? The Vikings have been a much better team than them this season.
Yeah, I mean, strangely, the Vikings have lost to 2 teams, and one was the Lions, and the other was the Rams. And they lost on a Thursday night in Los Angeles, but they kind of came out flat. It was, I believe, after the first Lions game where they were kind of maybe sluggish and having to turn around on a short week. This is going to be more of a normal week. I know the Rams have rested, but you're right. The Rams' offense has been less impressive as their defense has gotten better with each passing game here of late. So I don't know if they're going to have a little rust The Vikings were kind of playing a playoff game against the Lions, the Rams. I don't know. They were just kind of mailed it in, didn't worry about the seed that much, and are going in. So we'll see. But I think you're right. Their offense is not automatic. They need a lot more than Puka Nacua to produce in this game if they're going to beat a Vikings team, very good Vikings team, for a second time, which is very hard to do.
All right, real quick, let's go to the Falcons and the Panthers. So many teams to talk about today. Falcons end the season really disappointing, especially with that performance from Michael Penix. Really good performance from Bryce Young as well. The Atlanta fans really unhappy today. They were really unhappy last season, though, too, Vinny. So I don't know what direction they're going to go, but I would think defensively, my gosh, like the Falcons have got to overhaul. They overhauled the offense last year. They're overhauling the defense this year. It feels like Arthur Blank is doing this every year with the team.
Yeah, it always looks like they're looking for an edge pass rusher. Every year, edge pass rusher they seem to need here. And Raheem Morris needs that. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I saw Bryce Young and Michael Penix. I think these are two keeper quarterbacks, that these guys are going to be competitive in this division for a while. So at least you got ahead of that. The Penix thing actually kind of worked out, where Kirk Cousins was a bust. They had a contingency. Now they don't have to worry about quarterback, but you're right. Defense for actually both of these teams. I mean, the Panthers gave up a historically number high in points this year. So defense with these quarterbacks, and maybe they can win, because again, these offenses look rather impressive right now with these young passers.
They do. All right, Vinny. I'm sure you'll be by your computer, by your phone, waiting for the latest news to break. We're doing the same thing here, of course, at SportsGrid. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up again ahead of the games this weekend. Thanks again.
All right, thanks, Craig.
All right, Vinnie Iyer from Sporting News. All right, what could be next in the NFL? Our SportsGrid insider, Adam Caplan, is going to join us a couple of times during the show. First time he joins us is next. Don't go away.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you gotta love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We're going to make a couple of visits with our SportsGrid insider, Adam Caplan, around the NFL. Lots happening with coaches and maybe some more to come. Let's bring Adam in and go over the very latest, who's in and who's out. A very big coaching day. Unfortunately, lots of families being affected. Want to make sure it's like not having fun talking about firings here. It's just the nature of the beast in the National Football League. So, Adam, great to be back with you here. Thanks for coming on the show. Let's start off in Jacksonville The least surprising outcome of the season, unfortunately for Doug Peterson, is he lost his job. Shad Khan making that announcement. I would guess what this does is a couple of things. First of all, as you know, Adam, opens up a job in the NFL, also opens up a position for Doug Peterson to go back and be OC, I would guess, somewhere else, which is not a bad thing for him either. I thought he did a really good job before he was head coach of the Jaguars.
Yeah, Craig, he is a good play caller, but with the Jaguars, and I'm talking to them, boy, they had high expectations. I know they had a collapse last season, losing 5 out of 6. They thought bringing Ryan Nielsen, the former Falcons defense coordinator, did a great job there, would help. Their defense was at times not competitive. It was really disappointing because they had invested some draft picks and free agent money in that defense. It didn't work. Trevor Lawrence dropped off again, really continuing last season. And yes, he got hurt, no question about that. Some free agent moves on offense didn't work out, and they just were a disaster. Doug wound up losing 19 out of his final 23 games with them. Shad Khan, you mentioned Shad Khan, the owner. He made it pretty clear that last offseason, the coaches had to do a better job of developing the players. And when you have a season like this, it comes to no surprise. But I could also tell you, I could add to this that I was told within weeks that really after last season, there was a sentiment. More than one person thought that Shad should have probably moved on from Doug. But Shad said no, they're not doing anything close to that. Because quite frankly, when you lose 5 out of 6, okay, it wasn't expected. But you have to remember when Doug Peterson came in there, and remember what happened, Craig, before that. It was the Urban Meyer experience, which was not very good. And Doug turned things around. In fact, he made the playoffs in the first year. But the collapse they had last season, adding to this year, there was going to be a change. Again, not a surprise. Everyone was expecting it.
All right. Maybe a bit of a surprise. Gerard Mayo's out in New England. And there's some speculation it's from one former Patriot to another, with maybe doing this quickly so they could get their hands on Mike Vrabel before he takes another job. I don't know that to be accurate. I'm just throwing out what the streets are saying, so to speak. But one and done coaches, I don't know, Adam. I always feel bad about this. Like it doesn't feel like any of these coaches sort of get a fair shake. Maybe Urban Meyer did get a fair shake, and that was a quick one. But Gerard Mayo, what was the assessment here?
All right, so this is kind of complex, but let me give you the Cliff Notes version. So he was Bill Belichick's handpicked successor. Like Bob Kraft, the owner, knew this many years ago that whenever Belichick was done, one way or the other, whether he retired or he moved on from Bill, which he did at the end of last season, Mayo was going to be the guy. Now, as a matter of fact, as I understand it, Mayo had, a bunch of teams that are interested in talking to him last year, but they had that handshake deal, which was actually written that Bill, if he was gone, that Mayo would be the successor. They had that agreement, so that's what happened. But I talked to someone actually who interviewed with them for a front office job. I'm going to say like last February or March, and he said when he sat in with the people there, he felt like they weren't totally sure that Mayo would be a great head coach. It was kind of a wait and see. So that's one thing to understand, that when you really look what happened this season, yes, they weren't very talented. They were playing a rookie quarterback, but he could not get these guys to improve. The team seemed rudderless. There was something off with this team, and Mayo as the head coach was obviously let go because of it. And that was the thing, because Gerard Mayo, known as a very smart football player, but man, a lot of things went on there, Craig, that were not good just around the football team, and not a good roster, and they could and players just didn't seem to have the buy-in that you need to have. That's the other part of this. And Gerard Mayo let go after 1 year. And by the way, again, this is another one, and we'll talk in the second segment about whether jobs are covered or not. They do at least have a quarterback.
Yeah. Maybe the biggest surprise of all, it shows you the loyalty that some of these owners have, which is nothing wrong with it. It's their team. They can do whatever they want. But man, Joe Shane back with the Giants, Brian Daboll back with the Giants as well. I don't know. I mean, it was like the worst Giants season ever. I think we expected something to happen here, but I guess they're going to run it back one more time. And obviously going into next year, these are the two that are on the biggest hot seat of all.
Yeah, the feeling here, as I was told yesterday, is that it would probably stay the course, because Joe Shane, the general manager, and Brian Daboll, they have the feeling around the team is let them get their own quarterback, then see if they can win or not. Remember, Daniel Jones was not drafted by this regime, and Daniel Jones, I'm told, was very close to John Mara, the president of the club. So the feeling now is they're going to get their own quarterback, and then they'll be able to evaluate the head coach and general manager better.
All right, we'll bring back Adam Caplan and ask about the futures of Antonio Pierce and Mike McCarthy. We'll be back with more next.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you got to love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We'll hit back Adam Caplan here in just a few minutes. Let's check in with Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report as we start off our new week of discussion on sports wagering going on across the country. Pat, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Let's begin and start off in Maryland. And you can read about this story, by the way, at LSR, legalsportsreport.com. Some potential online casino progress here. In fact, one of the state legislatures, from what I'm reading here, said this could happen without the sky falling. So it must seem like there's some opposition coming in a big way for this to happen.
Yeah. So first of all, right now we're heating up in legislative season. A lot of them are taking off on Wednesday to start. So we're going to be talking a lot about legislation here in the coming weeks, Craig. Just kind of sports betting in states that we haven't seen legalized yet, online casino in a lot of states, sports betting taxes, what have you. First thing to note on online casino is there's only a few markets in the country that have it, including Michigan, where I am. And it's been a lot slower to pick up legalization-wise than the industry might have hoped. And I don't think that's really going to change, especially with the new headwinds against online gambling. We've talked about it here, the U.S. Senate hearing, the U.S. federal bills targeting online gambling, the likes, and just general public feeling right now is kind of anti-gambling. And so that's going to affect a lot of these state level discussions. But in Maryland, we've got a representative who introduced a bill last year for online casino and actually got it through the Maryland House, Delegate Vanessa Atterbury. She's introducing another bill. It will begin in her Ways and Means Committee that she chairs and held a very lengthy hearing last year to discuss it. And yeah, she said, we can do this. We need to do this. There's illegal gambling happening. But yeah, to your point, she said we can do it without the sky falling. It's important that we do this. She talks about how she's not a gambler, but she'll go to casinos for events and stuff to kind of quell the cannibalization discussions that we also heard in Maryland last year. Now, the problem here is the Senate. In Maryland, Senator Ron Watson introduced a pretty similar bill to Atterbury last year, but the Senate is less friendly to gaming, it appears, for right now. It did not even take up Atterbury's bill. And Watson, went to the National Council of Legislators from gaming states last year, talked about kind of the lessons learned. He said there's a lot of campaigning that needs to be done internally in the Senate, kind of to educate what this means and why it's important. We'll see if anything changes on the Senate floor this year. We'll see if the House can kind of redo last year. It was a pretty overwhelming vote 4 in the House. So we'll see if that wave kind of continues over. But again, a lot of headwinds against online gambling. So I'm be kind of surprised if this does pass, but Maryland is certainly one of the states to watch in terms of states that could get it done this year.
All right, so now let's follow up and ask the same question about Illinois. We've been talking about them, by the way, through the end of the year into this year too. What are their chances of getting this done?
This one is also interesting because now you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker saying, this is something we should consider. And it comes as he's probably working on his budget that needs to be proposed by February. And they're going to have something like a $3 billion budget shortfall. So they need revenue. And, a representative who has introduced bills in the past says this is a great way to raise revenue. The senator who was speaking of it has introduced it both of the previous 2 sessions. They run 2 years length, so 2021 and 2023, and I assume she will again this year. But with Pritzker saying, this is something we should consider, you have to think that carries some weight in Illinois. We know Pritzker is a fairly friendly person to gambling. They've opened up sports betting since he took office. They've added some new casinos to the state. It's not all friendly. They did raise the taxes to a tiered level based on your revenue for sports books last year. So it's not all friendly, but J.B. Pritzker is very friendly to the industry. So it'll be interesting to see if he does in fact include this in the budget, or maybe they go about it the other way with just straight legislation. Again, something interesting to watch. Again, there are plenty of headwinds against this. Lots of, the public is kind of wary about the expansion into gambling, having sports books already. That you might see some more responsible gambling action in Illinois as well, just kind of to say, hey, we're going to pay attention to this as well as expand it a little bit more. But the expansion is important to keep it regulated and in the public eye.
All right, so let's close it out with the possibility of Alabama getting going with some sports betting here. And, I know that there's going to be a lot of opposition on this one, as there has been for years, Pat. I guess the workaround here is they're trying to move, it looks like, through the Senate as opposed to the House. Maybe I'm not saying that this is circumventing anything. It's just maybe a different way of proposition to get this done.
Alabama is such an interesting state, and it's one that I've actually come to kind of enjoy watching because it is so interesting. Over the past couple of years, it is one of 5 states without a state lottery. So you start there, and that's one of the things that they focus on is any of the gambling bills really starts there by creating an Alabama lottery. From there, it's kind of expanding. They figure basically, let's go ahead and go big and have casinos and online sports betting and all the like by including that in the lottery bill. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a Senate bill that did all of that. It passed the Senate. It went to the House and didn't pass. So the next time around, the Senate goes, okay, we're going to give it to the House. The House pretty much bases what they put together in a package and sent it to the Senate. The Senate said no. And in a conference committee, they stripped most of the casino language. They stripped online sports betting. The House still passed it. The Senate didn't pass it. And so that's where we're at this year. We've got a House minority leader saying, okay, we've come really close. We've done this a couple of times. It seems like we agree to wanting to do this sort of stuff. So, you know what? We did it last year. You guys could go ahead and try to do it again. At the same time, you've got a Senate leader saying, we're going to continue to approach this more conservative than the House. So, it kind of seems like a stalemate. I wouldn't be surprised at some point if they just come to an agreement, go ahead and pass a lottery, and then from there, in the future sessions, kind of expand it from there, including online sports betting, especially if you see Georgia and Mississippi go online, then you're going to see some more pressure in Alabama, I would think. I mean, Craig, there's a lot of legislation coming on board. As I've mentioned, we're going to be talking about a lot of these in the coming weeks. I mean, we've got more online casino coming. We've got Minnesota heating up. We got, and you can't forget, Missouri is going to be launching here in a couple of months. That I should have an update for you soon.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happening, Craig.
All right. We'll keep an eye on it, Pat. And as always, check out all of your articles over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks as always, Craig.
All right, Pat Evans from LSR here with us. All right, last night's game, once again to recap, Detroit Lions end up capturing the NFC North 31-9, the final there. One of the worst outputs of the season, by the way, for Minnesota. We should mention the Lions defense doing a great job against the Vikings, and that was more or less the issue for head coach Kevin O'Connell, who gave credit to the Lions defense, but said they just simply didn't get their O going.
Obviously a disappointing effort, but you have to compliment those guys on the other side for playing a really good football game. And, we didn't do a lot of the things that we've consistently done, all season long. And this game came down to, finishing in the red zone, weighty downs, third downs, pitching and catching. And I thought our defense battled, asked a little bit too much of them. And that's going to happen against a good team. But we've done a lot of really, really good things. This has been a phenomenal football year for our team, and that locker room is already ready to go. Guys are ready to respond, and we'll get ready to go for a huge opportunity coming up on Monday night, going on the road.
Monday Night Football, also other games upon us, including that rematch between the Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. Zay Flowers, the Pro Bowl wide receiver for the Ravens, who was injured in their game over the weekend, looks like he's a questionable decision for their upcoming playoff game in Week 1. John Harbaugh, head coach, said that this isn't a multi-week thing, but it could end up costing him this week's game. We'll have to wait and see on that. We'll be right back again with Adam Caplan next.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you got to love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. Let's bring back Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, get the very latest. Adam, when we last left you, I asked you, or I was going to ask you a question I didn't get in. Raiders and Cowboys are the two jobs that we have not heard that the coaches are going to be back now. Jerry Jones seemed to be pretty emphatic that McCarthy was going to be back, although they haven't made like this Twitter post or anything saying that that's going to happen. That seems to be a bad sign for me. I don't want to say that, but it just feels that given this nature of the NFL where the owners are coming out and endorsing or firing guys, why hasn't that happened for either of those two?
Well, Jerry Jones, who, Craig, talks like 3 or 4 days a week, He has a radio show in Dallas. He talks to the media a lot, after games especially. He made it clear that they were not going to talk contract until after their final game. And they're going to meet. McCarthy did admit that they're going to talk this week. Now, McCarthy's contract expires next Tuesday, I believe, which is typical when coaching contracts expire. It's generally the Tuesday after the last game of the season. So this one is interesting because we all surprised after last season when Jerry Jones, after a blowout loss at home in the playoffs to the Packers, they brought McCarthy back. So that definitely, a lot of people around the league were shocked by that. They had a lot of injuries, no question about it, losing their quarterback. And Jerry spoke glowingly of not only Mike McCarthy, but the defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer, lately. He's known Zimmer for decades. So, yeah, the indication is both sides, and McCarthy also talked about it this week, both sides would like to deal with each other, but they've not talked contract terms. It's not so much the money, it's how many years. If he comes in, think about this, right? If he comes in with a 2-year deal, why would you take that if you're McCarthy? Because my understanding around the league, talking to people, Craig, is this is not a great head coaching list. And here's a guy, by the way, who won a Super Bowl with the Packers in 2010.
All right, so let's take a look at the potential candidates for the Patriots, because we do know they're looking for a new head coach. Mike Vrabel played there, so there is some indication that maybe he gets the first crack at it. We know Ben Johnson, if he wants a job this offseason, he's going to get it. Maybe Aaron Glenn will too. Brian Flores, former head coach. Liam Cohen has risen up the ranks. Joe Brady back in Buffalo looks fantastic again. I don't know what happened in Carolina, by the way, with him. I thought he'd be great there too. Todd Monken is, I think a lesser possibility of some of these. But, Ben Johnson did this circuit last time around, decided not to take a job. I mean, I can't imagine him passing on all of these jobs again. Can you?
Well, Washington really wanted him, and they're obviously happy with Dan Quinn, but they really wanted him. It didn't work out. They actually waited for him. Other teams were not willing to wait for Ben Johnson. Let's see what happens this time around. I remember talking to the Broncos when Kevin O'Connell was available. Available. He wanted to be head coach, and he was with the Rams. But the problem was they weren't waiting till he became available because he was in the Super Bowl, and they settled on Nate Hackett, and that didn't work. Hackett was fired during his first season. So you got to be willing to wait. And these rules, Craig, are so bizarre. You kind of have to. You can't officially hire anyone yet. You have to wait and go through the process, Rooney Rule, and so forth, because they have certain rules, which, by the way, they tweak every couple of years, and so you have to go through the circuit. But the bottom line is Ben Johnson is by far the top offensive guy. Mike Vrabel is the top defensive guy. Now, you mentioned Mike Vrabel with New England. Yes, he's on their list. Trust me on that. But here's the thing. Other teams have interest in him. But the one thing that New England has, which some of these teams don't have, like the Jets and a couple others, is they have a quarterback. Yes, the roster's not very good, but they have a quarterback. That is what's going to attract some guys to interview, which I think would have leverage. Ben Johnson has leverage with any club. He could pick and choose. You kind of covered this. He can pick and choose what he wants. And that's why, by the way, if he doesn't interview for some of these jobs, it's strictly because he doesn't think that he could win there. That's my understanding.
All right, so let's take a look at the current vacancies. There's 5 right now. We thought maybe there'd be 6 for with the Giants, but they didn't make a move. So it's the Patriots, the Jets, the Saints, the Bears, and the Jaguars, and so that's 5. I mean, there are, this long list of candidates, Adam. I see some names I recognize, but do you consider this to be a strong list of potential candidates? I mean, now that Belichick has gone and to the University of Tennessee, and Kingsbury is a recycle, and Pete Carroll, is a potential Hall of Famer, but again, a recycled coach. Flores, who did a great job in Minnesota, recycled coach. I don't see any new names here outside of Ben Johnson, and I like Brady personally, Joe Brady. Beyond that, I don't see a ton.
All right, couple things here. So I just remember covering this story, and Mike Tomlin was the little known defensive coordinator for the Vikings. He just had completed his first year. And he was not the guy that the Steelers wanted to hire. They wanted to hire Russ Grimm, the former offensive lineman and a really good offensive line coach for them, and it just didn't work out. And Tomlin was in the bottom of their list. He's one of the last guys they interviewed, and he blew them away. So when you talk about my list, yeah, there's some guys on there that you go, wow, this guy can't get the job. I've learned my lesson. Never say never. Tomlin just was, by the way, Tomlin, He's never had a losing season. We could talk about that he hasn't won a playoff game since 2017. That's a fact. But you got to get these guys in front of you. Then you decide whether you want to hire them. And by the way, it's all about command. It's all about how you present yourself in these interviews. Because Ben Johnson, by the way, Ben Johnson's brilliant. Maybe the best offensive mind in the National Football League. But he's got to interview well. It's not such a shoo-in that he's going to get a job, but he clearly will be on the top. But I do want to talk about Joe Brady. Joe Brady's got a ton of energy. I'm told in Carolina he got fired mid-season 3 years ago. Couldn't scheme guys open. But you know what? 3 years later with Buffalo, he's scheming guys open. And that's why he's certainly going to be on list to interview very, very soon.
All right, before you go, Adam, let's get to the games.
Yep.
Favorite game of the week? Which one? What do you got? You know my favorite game of the week. What's yours?
Yeah, you know what? You know what game I find intriguing? I'll be honest with you with these games this week. I got one that I think could be fantastic, just because I think it's very, very even. And I know everyone's going to pick Pittsburgh and Baltimore again. No, it's the Washington and Tampa Bay. I actually love that game. That's
Me too.
That's right up there. Philly and Green Bay. Green Bay's kind of limping into the playoffs.
I agree.
But I love Jaden Daniels. Yes, your guy. I love Daniels and Baker Mayfield. I cannot believe coaching matters. You mentioned Liam Cohen. This is why teams are going to be interested in Liam Cohen. Look at the job he's done with Baker Mayfield. Absolutely incredible.
Unbelievable. Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, I really like all these games. By the way, the only one I don't like is the annual Houston Texans game on Saturday afternoon, which it feels like it's been 20 of the last 21 years. Adam, enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up again later in the week. Thanks for coming on.
That's good, man. Thanks.
There's a lot of bowl games. I love all of them. Even if you don't like bowl games, you got to love the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what it means for college football.
Who doesn't get excited for Pop-Tarts? But also, this is one of those where, Ben, I guess you could put your kids through college. Miami doesn't care about bowl games. They don't ever win those. Miami's a favorite. They usually go take the Iowa State Cyclones. Miami doesn't play any defense whatsoever, so you automatically just bang the total.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Of course, throughout the day, we'll keep an eye on all of these moves in the National Football League. A lot of coaching changes happening, so stay on the grid for that. We'll have more on that in just a minute. But first, let's get to some last licks. We'll talk a little bit about Mike Evans, also get into what the Vikings tried to pull off last night, and also one poor fan didn't get the memo. As I said, time now for some last licks. I mean, when you think about it, if I would have told you 3 years ago, let's call it 3, that all-time, the only receiver that would have an 11-game streak of 1,000 yards or more in the NFL would be Mike Evans. You would have said, wait, that Mike Evans, he hasn't retired yet? He has not. And he did it again against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. His streak reaches 11 consecutive years of 1,000 yards. Yes, this guy is a Hall of Famer. It's not even a question. But to think about this accomplishment, now I get it. The NFL has added a game to the schedule the last couple of years, and that definitely makes it a little bit easier. He wouldn't have got it if it wasn't for that. I understand all that. But still, to stay as healthy as he has, and I know he's had a couple of injuries over the course of his career with all the different quarterbacks that he has had over the course of his career, really tremendous accomplishment. And the way that they celebrated this thing yesterday was also amazing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will play the Commanders coming up this weekend. And Mike Evans, certainly a big factor in their plans going into this game as well. All right, going into the Sunday Night Football game, the Vikings were possessed on making sure it was an environment where fans could attend from Minneapolis. So they bought $2 million worth of tickets to go to Ford Field on the secondary market to flood the stadium with Vikings fans. Folks, I watched that game last night. I definitely saw some purple. It didn't make any difference whatsoever. Word to the wise, there is better money spent than trying to, let's just say, buy $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 worth of tickets in a 70,000-person stadium. It ain't going to work. So yesterday, the Detroit fans were not only loud, but that was sounded like one of the loudest stadiums that I've heard all season long. And the Lions dominated the game. And here they are wasting all that money on tickets. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I know it feels cool, and in the moment, it's really cool to travel. But how do you feel at the end of that game? You traveled from Minneapolis to Detroit to see your team lose 31-9, and all these people spent money on this stuff. I will never understand that. Now, being a fan is cool, and I get it. I've attended games as the road person. Costs a lot of money. But you always get back from those things thinking, why did I do that? That was a huge mistake. Speaking of huge mistakes, this is the biggest one of the weekend, easily. Frank, our producer, sent this to me yesterday. I didn't even see it. He sent it to me during the day. How can this possibly be? Now, if you are a fan of a player and you follow the NFL at all, then you knew going into the game on Sunday against the New York Giants that Saquon Barkley was not going to play. Okay? He was not going to play in the game. So maybe you don't have the internet, maybe you don't have friends, maybe you don't have a phone, but how in the world could a fan show up yesterday at the link with a stadium with a sign that says, "We are here to see Saquon break the NFL rushing record"? I mean, it was out there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning. This is the sign that you brought to the stadium? I mean, come on. You knew he wasn't going to play. Now, I'm guessing that they made this earlier in the week, and as it says there in the title there, hopefully this is a joke. But I don't know. I mean, when you're making the sign, isn't somebody around you going to say, is he even playing this way? Like, did this conversation even happen? Were they just hoping all of a sudden that they were just going to activate him despite what was said publicly by the coach? In the media, Nick Sirianni, not going to play this week. Saquon, not going to play this week. But still, you make a sign? I don't know. Football fans, I consider you guys very smart. This person is not one of them, unless it is a joke. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Thanks again to Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider. Thanks again to Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report and Vinnie Iyer from Sporting News. Also, thanks to our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. To give you an idea as to what's coming up next here on SportsGrid, Pharrell was at the Steelers game over the weekend, so he's off today. But, of course, Carver and Joe Ranieri have you covered at 3 o'clock Eastern. Tons of college basketball going on tonight, tons of NBA, NHL as well. So make sure you are on the grid for that, because this is going to be, I would guess, one of the most fun weeks if you are a football fan of the entire season. Games Thursday night in Miami, Friday night, semifinals, college football, and then Saturday night, Sunday night, and Monday night. All football, all weekend long here at SportsGrid. I don't know how we're going to get into it all, but we'll find a way. So we'll take a deep breath and we'll get ready for it. A couple of days here on the show. We'll cover everything else for you. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great Monday, everyone. See you then.